Well, old Stephanus in the 1550s divided up the verses. He gave us a long verse 16 and he gave us a short verse 17. So, can you translate it? Here's my translation. All unrighteousness is sin, and there is a sin not to death. So, this is one of two, not really definitions of sin in First John, but kind of statements about what sin is. One is that sin is lawlessness, and here's the other one: sin is unrighteousness. Um, that's a very somewhat vague statement because we then say, well, what is unrighteousness? And of course, we could then go back into First John and see probably that unrighteousness is best defined, uh, at least primarily defined in First John in relationship to love, in relation to withholding um, good from others when you can do good. But there is a sin not to death. There is a sin. So this, I think, corroborates my sense that he's not talking about literal death here, because if there's a sin not to death, and he means you didn't die physically, well, that would be obvious. But if the sin to death is a spiritual death, then to clarify and say there is a sin not to death would make sense. So I think verse 17 pretty well clinches it for the sin to death being spiritual death, not physical death. That there are some sins that they break your relationship with God, sever it, and then there are others that are not sins to death, and these are the ones that pray and they will be forgiven. Um, well, okay, so sin is unrighteousness, which is basically anything that is not righteous, and I think this is of a probably of a concrete nature for John, things you do, things that are visible, probably, in John's way of thinking about it. Well, so breaking down the translation into slow motion, every unrighteousness is sin. This is called a predicate nominative, um, because the subject is nominative. And then after the verb is, this is called a predicate nominative. It's also nominative. The verb is does not convey action. So the verb is does not take a direct object. It's like an equal sign. So nominative equals nominative. And so this is a nominative in the predicate, the last part of an English sentence. All unrighteousness is sin, and a sin is not to death. I put there as a sin, not death. That seems to be the best colloquial English expression to say this, although there isn't the subject in English, by the way. It's a strange English convention that doesn't make any sense. So, a sin is not to death. Um, we would want to say in English, there is a sin not to death. Well, grammar. Not a lot of interesting or grammar here. So all unrighteousness is a attributive construction. There's no article there. It's just every sin. Um, I told you this is a predicate nominative. The parsing of is, since I didn't have anything else really to parse, it is present. It is indicative. I don't say active because there's no action involved. It is third singular. He, she, or it is, and it's from a me. So it's present, indicative, third singular from a me. This is exactly the same. This is a nominative. This is an accusative with a preposition. Pretty easy. So, can you pronounce it? Pasa arakia hamartia estin. Kai estin. Hamartia u pros thanaton. Interestingly, you may have wondered, well, why is the accent different in each of these cases? So first of all, Estin is a enclitic. It doesn't want an accent. So these accents have to do with basically the situation. And to be honest, it's not behaving according to my normal way of processing the accents for enclitics. I'm guessing that this probably has to do maybe with the comma. I'm not sure. Um, and then, man, why is this one here? Maybe because there are so many syllables before you get to the accent. I'll just be honest. I'm not 100% sure why these accents are behaving the way they are. Enclitics take an accent when there isn't enough, when you have a long stretch of syllables without an accent. So I'm not going to look it up because I don't have my grammar books available to me. I'm still in boxes here. Let me say it at normal speed. Passa adakia hamartia estin, kai estin hamartia u pros thanaton. And that's the Greek for today.